have the utmost confidence in what my boy is doing. I'm going to tell you right now, he's better than Steph Curry.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Playoffs? You kidding me?
Hello and welcome inside the Sportz Sermon here in our second episode of the summer. I'm Dylan Staggy.
I'm Jason Gandhi.
And we are here to talk about some NBA playoffs today. We have the Eastern Conference Finals with Jason and I. And then for the Western Conference Finals, we have Christian Munson on, who is the brother of Zach Munson, our co-host, and also a forward at Rollins College for their basketball team down in Florida, and a state champion and 1,000-point scorer for our high school here in Catholic High School just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we got a new segment we're introducing, Big Ballers at the Buzzer. You know Zach, Dan, and I are big fans of the Ball family, so we're going to get into all the Ball family news. And as mentioned, it's just us. As Dan has his sectional baseball game, we're actually going to support that after the podcast. But if you don't know who Dan is, he will be joining us in a few weeks after his school gets out. As you can see, the Twitters are mentioned below, but let's get into the Eastern Conference Finals. Boston went on a 15-3 run in the first quarter to turn a 3-point deficit into a 9-point lead. The Celtics scored 9 in a row at the end of the first quarter and into the second to take a 36-19 lead, which was their biggest of the game. Eventually, the Celtics would win by 13 due to holding James to just 2 fourth-quarter points, earning their 10th straight victory in Boston to remain perfect at home this postseason and move within one win of their first trip to the NBA Finals since 2010. Al Horford had 15 points and 12 rebounds. 21-year-old Jaylen Brown had 17 points for Boston, and Jason Tatum, the star of the night, had 24 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals. But Dylan, my question for you, throughout this series, what has been more effective, the Celtics offense or the Celtics defense?
I'm going to say the Celtics defense, because in the 3 games that the Celtics have won so far, they haven't given up 100 points, and they've made LeBron really work a lot harder than the Pacers or the Raptors had in their series. Obviously, they have some better defenders to guard him, but they've really made him work. And I think that's an underrated part of the reason that LeBron was visibly tired last night, as everyone was talking about. Celtics defense been a big part of their success.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's got to be the defense, forcing 62 turnovers over the last 4 games. That's almost 16 per game. LeBron is just exhausted because the Celtics defense is outworking their team every possession. And a quick stat I saw on ESPN this morning, the second half of last night's game, LeBron only drove 7 times compared to 14 in the first half, and he only had .67 points per possession in that second half. So definitely a clear drop-off, and I think that's credit to the Celtics defense.
Yeah, and so you talked about LeBron's fatigue. I did too. It's obviously something that everyone's talked about, but are we more concerned about that or the lack of production from LeBron's supporting cast, who has been historically bad this season?
Yeah, I got to go with fatigue, because by now we know the cast won't show up. So LeBron has to do it all. If he's tired, this series is over, because we know that LeBron has to be the guy. It's been shown time and time again, and if he doesn't get any help, well, he already hasn't gotten any help, so that really isn't any different. You're seeing right now with these highlights that LeBron will just kick it over and it's a one-step shot. They don't really have any time to dribble and create because they're frankly not good enough. Like, it is the LeBron show, and if he's tired, I think that this series will be over very quickly tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think LeBron's fatigue is definitely a problem, but I say the lack of production has definitely got to be bigger. LeBron has come back from some fatigue problems before. He's really never felt this fatigue. If he has, he's fixed it really quickly, and I think he'll do the same, especially when he's at home for Game 6. But, I mean, someone else has got to create a shot for themselves, or he's just going to continue to be tired if he has to work so hard every single possession. And I think another part that made LeBron tired is because the Cavs' defense is just so bad. I mean, the Cavs were able to hide LeBron on defense against the Pacers and the Raptors in those 2 series, but the Celtics offensively, everyone can score, so you can't really hide LeBron on defense as much as you could in those 2 previous series. So if the Cavs can really start to help LeBron on offense, he can have less fatigue on defense and trying to create for his teammates because they haven't so far.
And I think part of the problem with the reason he's tired is because you look at who they're trotting out. I'm a big fan of Tristan Thompson this series, and you'll hear about that in a few minutes, but if you're going to put out George Hill, J.R. Smith, LeBron, Kevin Love, and Tristan Thompson, that then allows the Celtics to go with their big lineup where you've got Al Horford and Aaron Baines, or however you say it, Aaron Baines, who are both able to then just stay in the lane and make him do something else besides drive. And I think that's a big reason why LeBron is getting frustrated / exhausted, because he can't do what he wants like he has been able to in the rest of the playoffs, like you mentioned. He has to find a different way to create besides just driving and out-muscling people, because with the lineups that Ty Lue is putting out there, the Celtics are able to put out 3, 4, 6, 8, and above players.
Yeah, I mean, Celtics definitely dominating, especially at home. But let's move on. So we had an argument earlier. Who is the Cavs' third best player? You think it's Tristan Thompson. I think it's Kyle Korver. Why do you think it's Thompson?
I think it's Thompson, not all year by any means. I think right now he is their third best player. You look at, he was virtually non-existent against the Pacers until Game 7. He had that monster 15-10 game from him after doing virtually nothing, where he dominated the Pacers and was able to lead them to victory. But then this Celtics series, this is where I've been incredibly impressed, and I was reading these stats earlier. I'll share them with you. Horford shoots 69% when Thompson sits, 33% when Thompson's on the floor. Big drop there. The Celtics have a negative 6.6 net rating when Horford and Thompson share the floor. That net rating jumps up to 30.7 when Horford plays without Thompson. And without Thompson, Horford assists on 28.6% of his teammates' baskets, but that drops to 14% when Thompson's on the floor. Last one, Horford grabs 18% of available rebounds without Thompson. That number drops to 9 when they share the floor. So Thompson completely locking up the star of the Celtics and Al Horford, because frankly he'd be the third option on their team ideally next year, but he has to be the star, and Thompson is shutting him down.
Yeah, I think Thompson's really the only anti-Horford guy, I guess, on the Cavs roster. I mean, Kevin Love's had a lot of trouble guarding him, and really he's just not big enough to guard a guy like a guy like Horford anymore. I mean, he was a lot bigger in Minnesota, but since he's gone to Cleveland, he's slimmed down, taken more threes, and can't really guard a big guy anymore. But I still think that Kyle Korver is more important to the Cavs, and he's been their third best player all postseason long. This postseason, he's shooting 46% for three, literally the only thing that a guy not named LeBron on the Cavs has to do to help them win the game. He's the most consistent out of everybody. I mean, guys like J.R. Smith, guys like George Hill, and even Tristan Thompson, who's had his ups and downs in the playoffs, have been pretty inconsistent so far. And what he did against the Pacers, he was their second leading scorer, and really they would have not even got to Game 7 for Tristan Thompson to do what he did without him. So I think Kyle Korver is the third best player for the Cavs right now.
I just think Tristan Thompson, it's hard to quantify because these defensive stats don't show up. But if you're shutting down Al Horford, then you really have no veteran presence on this team, and you're making guys like Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Aaron Baines, those four, and then have to score, and you're taking out this huge weapon the Celtics have. I just think defensively that Tristan Thompson has been the reason that the Cavaliers are even staying in this series, because yes, Korver's always going to be able to shoot, but this is something that the Cavs didn't know they had until this series, and that's why I think he's their best player, because he's been such a surprise that has been made such an impact on this series.
All right, so LeBron's supporting cast, obviously they've been terrible, so what is really necessary for LeBron to put up in this Game 6 and Game 7 for the Cavs to come out with a win in the series?
It's got to be a 50-point triple-double. I just don't see any other way that they can win Game 6 without it, because
Game 6, though, I mean, I think the role players show up at home more. I might say that for Game 7, but...
I mean, Game 6, I don't think it's a guarantee they win by any means. I think they have got to show some defensive effort. Yes, Boston struggled on the road, but I'm not one to say that that's going to stay forever. I think that now, because you think about Tatum and Brown and all these guys have now had time to reflect on those games because it wasn't they're stuck in Boston. They got to go back home, get their rhythm back, now go back to where they know they struggled. They're aware of it. They watched all the film possible. Obviously, Jason Tatum watched detail 25 times in that one night, like he said. But I just think this game's going to be different. And if the Cavs want to get on in the winning column, it's got to be a 50-point triple-double. And he's going to have guys like Jordan Clarkson, George Hill, Kyle Korver, J.R. Smith, Larry Nance, Tristan Thompson, whoever it may be, they've got to show up because I think this will be a tough game for them to win.
I mean, if those guys show up, I don't think he really needs a 50-point triple-double for the Cavs to win. But I do say in Game 6, I think they will show up, and LeBron puts up something like a 30-point triple-double, and I think they do win Game 6. We'll get into that in a little bit. But for Game 7, I definitely agree with you. It's got to be some 40, 50-point triple-double, some crazy stat line because Boston has been insane at home, and the Cavs have really struggled on the road.
Yeah, I'll put it out there right now. I just don't think this game gets back to Game 7. I think that this is where the Celtics ended. I think Brad Stevens puts out a fantastic game plan, and the young Celtics get it done. It pains me to say it as a Laker fan, but it is what it is. I think this is where LeBron's demise and his last time in a Cleveland uniform is played tomorrow night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very hot takes. Anyway, so what do you think the score is for Game 6?
I've got 121 to 110. I think the Celtics come out shooting the ball very well, and I think they close it out.
I think LeBron's determined to get a win, especially at home. I don't think the fatigue will hurt him as much because he's at home and other things like that. I think the role players also show up. I think Boston in an elimination game will closeout game for them, not an elimination game. I think they struggle to come out at first, shoot bad. I think they pick it up towards the end, but I see the Cavs winning 113-101.
That's not bad. 12-point game. I mean, it's closer than any of these games have been. It's just been a very boring series, to say the least. Like, it's just none of the games have been good. By the third, fourth quarter, the games have been over. So hopefully we see a different game in Game 6.
Yeah, and that's why our conversation about this is just about 12 minutes instead of our next interview with Christian Munson, where we talk about the Warriors-Rockets, an actually exciting series for about 25. So that's coming right up, and we hope you guys enjoy that. After that interview, we will be back to talk about some NBA rumors and debut our new segment, Big Ballers at the Buzzer. So hope you guys enjoy. All right, guys, welcome back to the Sportz Sermon, and now we welcome on Christian Munson, who is a forward at Rollins College for their basketball team and a state champ here for our high school, Garin Catholic, here in the state of Indiana, and we're going to have him on to talk some Rockets-Warriors series. So we'll have Jason start off with the game recap.
Yeah, so the Warriors started out hot, going on a 12-0 run to start the game. Klay, Steph, KD, all could not be stopped. But then the tide turned. Harden and CP3 show why they came together in Houston. We knew from all along that that was their plan, to dethrone the Warriors. And as the game went on, the Warriors just looked more and more worn out, and the Rockets outlasted the Warriors 95-92 and tied the series at 2 apiece. And so now the Rockets have home court advantage back again, and it's a series of 3. So, Christian, my first question for you is, Steve Kerr said after the game, we just ran out of gas. So, should Golden State worry about their depth?
I'm really not concerned about Golden State's depth very much. You know, anytime you have 4 All-Stars, you know, maybe your bench isn't as great as some other teams, but I think having 4 All-Stars, you're going to really be able to carry your team through a long playoff run. They've kind of proven that. Now, it is kind of concerning that obviously Klay Thompson hurt his knee in Game 4. I think he's likely to play in tonight's game, so that's obviously big. But he was kind of a shell of himself in that second half, not really being able to move very well or hit any shots. And but the big one with Andre Iguodala being out last game, I thought that was a really big missing piece and really allowed the Rockets to kind of get in more of an offensive rhythm, especially in that fourth quarter. And I think that he's a game time decision tonight. So that'll be really interesting to see how he's playing. But overall, I think that, the way that Golden State plays basketball with their motion offense, their off-ball screens, their basket cuts, really no matter who they have out there, I think they'll be able to get some pretty good looks.
Yeah, I think a good point you mentioned was that Klay Thompson thing, because that was something that really flew under the radar, because when you see that come across, everyone just goes, oh, he's playing, it doesn't matter, blah, 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 blah. But, he did not look the same as he usually does. I think that's a great point. I agree they shouldn't worry about the depth. Iguodala is out, and there's a reason D'Antoni referred to him as the fifth All-Star in his pregame presser when they heard he was out. The Warriors are going to be okay. I think I've made it very clear on Twitter and Sportz Sermon, all that I think the Warriors are by far the best team in basketball, so I am not worried about them at all.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of foul trouble, too. One thing you didn't mention, Draymond played 45 minutes. KD played 43. I think that quote from Steve Kerr is very accurate. The thing is, though, the Rockets also played 4 guys over 40 minutes and only played 7 guys total in the entire game. So, the Rockets really not struggling with that same thing, though. But I think Steve Kerr definitely can probably use that as an excuse because, like you guys mentioned, Klay and Iggy were both injured, and then Draymond and KD had to pick up the slack, and they were both a little bit tired.
Yeah, to be fair, though, I just looked up how many minutes per game both guys averaged throughout the season. Both averaged close to 35 minutes a game, so I think Harden and Paul are going to play more minutes than Curry, KD, Klay, and Draymond in general because it's 2 versus 4. You have to have them out there longer. So I think in general, the stars for the Rockets are just more conditioned than the Warriors are. But away from the conditioning, let's go to the Rockets side. Dylan, you're wearing your James Harden jersey. I don't know if people can see that, but the James Harden jersey. Let's talk about him. He had a good game. Does this game change the narrative on James Harden and your former team's favorite player, Chris Paul? So both guys you kind of have an attachment to. Let's have you go first. Do you think the narrative has changed on those two?
Well, first of all, I think the narrative is pretty stupid and pretty ignorant anyway, because this is Harden's 4th time in the conference finals, and he's come back from a 3-1 deficit before against the Clippers, and you might think that's a slight on CP3. In those 3 games where the Clippers choked, he had 22 and 10, 31 and 11, and 26 and 10. Chris Paul averages 2 points per game more in the playoffs over his career, so I don't really see the whole narrative anyway, but your whole Chris Paul and James Harden are bad in the playoffs narrative, it should, after this game, dispel. Those guys really carried them, and Golden State lost the game. What can I say?
Christian, I'll have you go first before I comment on it, because Dylan and I have this debate a lot, so I'll get into it after you go.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, no, I personally never gotten the Chris Paul narrative as well. I know that this is his first time being in the conference finals, but, he has always come up big in the playoffs. I remember in Game 7 against San Antonio a handful of years back, he had a game-winning floater to seal that victory, coming in clutch. And you're right, Dylan, he's put up big numbers in some key games. It's just that his whole team wasn't able to overcome and get the win. And we have to remember that the Western Conference is stacked. It's loaded. It's hard to get to a conference finals. You're always running to some good teams. But James Harden, on the other hand, he does kind of have a history. When he was in the finals back with the Thunder, he was not very good those 5 games. We saw, 2 years ago in the conference finals against the Warriors, he really struggled down the stretch. Last year against the Spurs, he struggled down the stretch. This year, though, especially with last night, I think that the narrative is changing. Although I don't agree with the narrative on Chris Paul, it's out there, and I think that in Game 5 of last series against the Jazz, he showed that he can close out a series. And here last night, he was unbelievable in the 4th quarter, getting bucket after bucket down the stretch, bringing them back from a 12-point 4th quarter deficit against the Warriors. That was unbelievable. James Harden, he really struggled in the second half, but again, the first half, he was unbelievable. He was the one keeping them in that game. So I guess we still need to wait to see if they can win this series. After all, their GM said this team is built to beat the Warriors. I think they're the best team ever, the Warriors. But when you have those kind of expectations, those are your goals, and you've been saying all this season that you want the Warriors, you want to play them, you think you can beat them. I think that it's up to them to beat the Warriors here to kind of secure that narrative and that legacy.
All right, so I'm on the opposite side. First, before I get into a different side of things, well, I'm going to answer the question plain off. I do not think this game changes the narrative, and this is why from a plain perspective. If the Warriors come out and kill them the next 2 games, no one talks about this game, and this game gets swept under the rug. I think if they win this series, then I agree that the narrative has changed a little bit. But I don't think this Game 4 is enough to change the narrative just because they could still get swept very easily. They are notoriously known for not coming through in the clutch, and you can't just take that away as soon as they do it one time. I need to see it more than once. But you guys both mentioned stats and examples and all that, so I'll take you for a trip down memory lane. We'll start with Harden. His is shorter because obviously he's been shorter in his career. 2013 in the Western Conference semifinals versus the Thunder in an elimination game. Yes, his team won by 2, but he had 15 points, 4 of 12 shooting with 10 turnovers. We'll go to the series Christian mentioned, 2015 Western Conference Finals versus the Warriors. As you mentioned, he did struggle. 14 points, 2 of 11 shooting, 5 assists, but 12 turnovers. And then, of course, the one that everyone remembers, last year, semifinals versus the Spurs, 10 points, 2 of 11 shooting, 6 turnovers, and Twitter absolutely let him have it. So, in James Harden's short career of being the star, I don't think you can just get rid of those 3 elimination games where he struggled and just sweep them under the rug because he had a good Game 4. Let's see it, especially, I think, if the Warriors get up tonight, so now they're up 3-2, and then we see James Harden and Chris Paul go back-to-back and win both, then I think the narrative's completely changed. But until they do that, Dylan, let's go back through Chris Paul, shall we? Your favorite player. I'll skip the 2008 one because that's a while ago. Let's go to 2012. His stat line in the Western Conference semifinals. He had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals on 37% shooting, and averaged 4.5 turnovers per game. But you guys both talked about how Chris Paul never had help, and it wasn't his fault. After Game 1, because Tony Parker and Chris Paul both kind of evened each other out in a bad Game 1, Parker had 21 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists on 40% shooting, when Paul had 15 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists on 41% shooting. But in that same series, Eric Bledsoe had 12 points, 2 assists, and 2 steals on 70% shooting on 16 less minutes played, but still had 22 minutes per game. And Blake Griffin had 21 points and 8 rebounds per game on 47% shooting. So that one right there shows he did have help, still didn't advance. 2014, I'm sorry this is so long, but
I'm going to fall asleep pretty soon.
Well, that's what happens when the Clippers kept getting bounced out of the playoffs. You got to sleep on your couch while you watch other teams play. Westbrook outplayed him over the series. Game 5, chance to go up 3-2 with the next game. Clippers up 2 with 18 seconds left. Chris Paul turns it over. Fouled Westbrook on a 3. Then he gets the ball back, turns it over again on the last possession to cost them the game and eventually the series. The last one I'll bring up, 2015. Game 6, up 3-2, a chance to go to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in Clippers history, Dylan. First time, up 13 entering the fourth quarter. Chris Paul, 1 for 6 shooting, 1 rebound, no assists, no steals, no blocks in the fourth quarter before a garbage time 3 at the end of the game when the game was already over. He choked away a 3-1 lead, and eventually the series became gone and disappeared. This 3-1 lead that everyone makes fun of the Warriors, but everyone forgets about the Clippers and Chris Paul. And Dylan, a Clipper now, Patrick Beverley, people say he's a lockdown defender. Maybe that's why he didn't even play. All of those things combined is why you cannot erase that 5-minute monologue I just had due to one game that wasn't even an elimination game. I just cannot get rid of that when it could be a meaningless game. That's my big thing, that this game could not matter in 3 nights.
Okay, so after you guys have just waken up from your naps after Jason's monologue.
Sorry, guys. Facts are facts.
He had a couple of bad moments in the playoffs, that fourth quarter.
Elimination games.
Okay,
those are big.
Bad moments, but not bad overall. And the first series that you mentioned against the Spurs, those are like 15 points and 9 assists. Like, he averages 18 points and 9 assists.
But Tony Parker outplayed him.
What do you want from him?
Tony Parker outplayed him. And he averaged 5 turnovers a game. That's just not... And they will keep saying he didn't have help. That was literally their series to win. He got 12 points and 70% shooting from Eric Bledsoe. That's 12. That's 12 points a game. And Blake Griffin had 21 points and 8 boards.
Both below his averages.
Both solid games that you should be able to beat the Spurs with that. When you can't have 5 turnovers a game and get outplayed by the opposing point guard if you want to be the star on your team. Everyone considered Chris Paul the star of his team, and he got outplayed by another player on his team and 2 on the Spurs. He was literally the 4th best player in that series. That is my problem. He never shows up in big moments. We talked about this on the last podcast. I was excited with how he played. Don't get me wrong. I even tweeted it that this is the Chris Paul I wanted to see. But we got to see it consistently. I can't do it after one game. If he does this the rest of the series, then you'll have me on the Chris Paul bandwagon all aboard that he's changed this narrative. I hope he does it. I can't get around that now.
All right. Anyway, let's move on back to this series. So the Warriors, in the last possession, they had a big opportunity to try to really get the win, but Steve Kerr decided not to call a timeout. The Warriors were disorganized, and they ended up losing the game. Christian, we'll start off with you. What do you think? Should they have called a timeout, or would you have if you were the Warriors coach?
No, I agree with Steve Kerr's decision initially. When Draymond got that rebound with about 12 and a half seconds to go, you've got Durant, you've got Steph, and you've got Clay. The three best shooters in my mind in the league. And not only are they the 3 best shooters, Steph can create his own shot, Clay can get his own shot, but more importantly, Kevin Durant. He's 7 feet tall. He can handle the ball like a guard, and he's got the best mid-range jumper in all of the NBA. And so when he gets the ball, and with about 12 seconds to go, and he's come down the court, I agree with Steve Kerr. Don't call a timeout. Don't let the Rockets get their defensive subs in. Don't let them go to the drawing board and draw up a defensive scheme to try and slow them down. Let them play. Let them run the fast break here and see if Durant can go get them a shot, or maybe Curry, or maybe Clay. But when he comes up the right side, he goes to the left. There's 4 people on the left side. I don't know why the spacing was so bad. It's like they hadn't even practiced it, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when he comes to the left, he gets PJ Tucker switched onto him. He doesn't even look to shoot the ball. He's about 19 feet from the basket, and he doesn't even look at the basket. He doesn't even look to score at all during that possession. And he makes a bounce pass to Klay Thompson, who's running along the baseline towards the corner, not even at the corner yet. And Klay Thompson, who had a bum knee the whole second half, hadn't really done anything the whole second half, catches it and stuck in the corner with 4 guys on the same side with about 4 or 5 seconds to go. That's when I would have called a timeout if I were Steve Kerr. I would have been sprinting down the court to call a timeout, because at that point it's pretty clear that there's no spacing, the defensive pressure is very high, and it's pretty clear you're probably not going to get a clean shot up, and you have the timeout to use. So at that point I would have called the timeout. But in the moment with Durant getting the ball and coming down the court, I would have just let them play. So I kind of like what Steve Kerr did, but eventually I think he needs to make the decision once it's clear that they aren't getting any kind of progress on a good shot to then go and call a timeout.
Yeah, I mean, you actually have the exact same opinion I have. I agree. Right when you get that rebound, do not call a timeout. You let them get down there, see if they can get a play. But then when the play starts to stall, like you mentioned, the 4 players all on the left side, and they get the ball to Clay in that corner. If you look at the top of the key, Draymond is actually standing there calling timeout like this. It doesn't get called. That is when I would have called the timeout. I would have had Kerr call one maybe a few seconds earlier, even with like 7 seconds. Once you see Durant pick up that ball looking to make the pass, I might have called timeout there. But anywhere in that 5 to 7 second range, when that play broke down, I think you should have called a timeout. But if you have to go timeout at the beginning or no timeout, I think you just let them play. They have 4 All-Stars. They should definitely have been able to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that makes 3 of us. I mean, hindsight is 20/20, so obviously they should have called a timeout, especially when it broke down. But letting the Warriors try and create something out of chaos, like you said, they have 4 All-Stars. They should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah. So let's look ahead a little bit. Obviously, we'll get Christian's Game 5 prediction, but before we get into that, let's go even bigger. Can Houston win this series?
Um, See, going into the series, despite Houston winning a bunch of games and having this team so-called being able to build to beat the Warriors, I thought the Warriors would win this in 5. I think this Warriors team is the best team ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just look at their offense and their defense and the kind of star power they have; they're absolutely unbelievable. But then again, we're 4 games in and it's 2-2. It's going to be a best-of-3 series, and 2 of those games will be in Houston. And the Rockets have found ways to win games. Game 2, obviously, they were hot from 3. But Game 4, I thought, was more of an impressive win because even though Houston, I felt like dominated most of the game, except for a couple spurts by the Warriors, it just seemed like a gritty win that they escaped there with that W. So going into these next 3 games, can they win it? There's definitely a way, obviously, with 2 home games, and if those shooters get hot again in the game, they can easily win. But I'd say so. I think that they do have a chance to win the series.
All right, yeah, I also definitely agree with you. I mean, like you mentioned, those 2 games at home are going to be absolutely huge. I think they have to get Game 5, though, if they want to win this series. If they don't get Game 5, then the Warriors have 1 game at home and only have to win 1 out of 2 to beat the Rockets. But if you flip it on the other side, the Rockets get Game 5, they still have a game at home, and they only have to get 1 out of 2 games to win the series. So I think if they get Game 5, they do win the series. But if they don't, it's definitely over. There's no way they can win 2 straight.
I think it's Warriors in 6, and this is why. Warriors in the 4th quarter shot 3 for 18. It is their worst shooting quarter this season, and they had just 12 points in the 4th quarter, which was tied for the fewest in franchise playoff history. I just don't see that happening again in crunch time. You got 4 All-Stars, like I've said plenty of times. Clay will be hopefully back up to at least 85-90%. You get Andre Iguodala back. You get that Hamptons Finals lineup. I don't think home court matters that much when it's the Rockets. Obviously, it does for the Warriors, like when they're in Oracle, but I don't think they get that much of an advantage when they're in Houston. So that being said, I don't really factor that in. I look at, if I had to pick one right now to win 2 out of the next 3, I think my obvious choice is the Warriors. I think each game is close again, but I think the Warriors come out on top and win the series in 6.
All right, so let's do it. Predictions.
So my Game 5 prediction, I got the Warriors win tonight. I think that, coming off of Game 4, like you guys were saying, how they really struggled to shoot the ball, and I think, for the last 2 days, Kevin Durant's been getting an earful about how, he kind of blew that last possession. He didn't even look to score. I think he's going to come into this game really, really focused. I think Steph's going to come into this game really, really focused. I think that the Warriors as a team are going to feel like, all right, hey, we finally have a team this year that can actually, push us around a little bit. Finally, someone who can actually play with us.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to be on high alert tonight. I think that they are really going to be upset with the way that they finished Game 4 and giving the Rockets that piece of hope. And all the media coverage that they've been getting these last couple days, kind of ripping Durant and Curry and even Steve Kerr for not calling a timeout. I think that they're just going to come out hyper-focused tonight and win this game. And I'll also then go on to say that they're going to win in 6 as well, because if they win tonight, which I think that they will, I think that they'll close it out in 6. I can't see the Rockets going over to Golden State again and getting another game.
Yeah, we seem to be in agreement there that if the Warriors do win tonight, the series is over. But I also think the Warriors win tonight. Like I said, I think they win 108-97. And like I said, I think they'll be close until the end. But it's just a matter of you look at those, like you just look at them matchup for matchup. And when it gets tight, the Warriors have experience and the Rockets really don't. We don't have to get into the James Harden, Chris Paul thing. But then besides Trevor Ariza, who else really has that championship pedigree on this team? And he hasn't been to a championship since 2010 with the Lakers. So I just think this is where experience really starts to hit home in this series, and I like the Warriors.
All right, I'm gonna take the Warriors, but if Iguodala doesn't play, I will switch my pick to the Rockets. I think that was a really underrated part of a reason that the Rockets were able to win Game 4. So I will take the Warriors right now, as sad as I am about it. If you can tell, I'm not a Warriors fan at all. So, unfortunately, I think the Warriors get it done. But if Houston does shoot like they do in Game 2, there's no stopping them.
Yeah. Christian, before we let you go, I know we didn't tell you we were going to talk about this, but who do you think wins the Cavs-Celtics series?
This series is just unbelievable. It seems like it really just seems like whoever is at home is going to blow the other team out by 20, 30 points. With Boston being up 3-2, I think that Cleveland wins Game 6 at home. Celtics haven't won a road game yet.
Yep.
And I think that LeBron's going to bounce back. He had a real tough game last night and has been hearing it today from the media. I can bounce back, win Game 6, and then, this Game 7.
Yeah.
The Celtics are undefeated at home in the playoffs, and the Cavs have been. They've won 3 games on the road, which is good, but this is a tough one because it's just been so up and down from each team. I think that the Cavs will win in 7 just because I think that they get Game 6, and in Game 7, I trust LeBron more than I do the young guns for the Celtics.
Yeah, I would take that a step further and say in Game 7, I trust LeBron over anybody in the NBA right now. If it goes to Game 7, I think the series is over. I've been saying these whole playoffs. I've said to everybody how I think when you're playing the Cavs, it's a series it's a series to 6 because once you get to Game 7, it's over already. So I think if it goes to 7, I think LeBron's got it.
Yeah.
Well, Christian, thank you for coming on. We'd love to have you back on again sometime soon and talk about the finals.
Yeah, no, anytime. I'd love to come on in here and talk hoops with you guys.
Sweet. Good luck at Rollins next year, and we'll be in contact. Try to get you back on in a week or so.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.
All right, welcome back inside the Sportz Sermon. We hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Christian Munson. Had a great discussion about the Warriors-Rockets series. But let's move away from what's happening on the court and go to what's happening off the court in the NBA because there's always just as much news off the court.
That's what makes it the best league in sports. There's always something going on 12 months a year. But first rumor for you, Dylan. The Mavs will reportedly target DeMarcus Cousins, DeAndre Jordan, or restricted free agent Julius Randle.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Dirk is obviously very old. That goes without saying.
Yep.
And then Nerlens Noel has really not worked out for them so far. So, the only thing that's really coming out of this rumor, they obviously want good big men on their team to replace those two, but maybe they're not targeting that in the draft anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to wait and see. They've got the 5th pick, if I'm not mistaken. 5th pick, and I think that this report's coming out just as a matter of we don't know what we're going to have because they basically, we've talked about it. I think it's a talent drop anywhere from 5 to 8. People can debate, but you're going to get slim pickings. So if you see a run of Bagley, Ayton, and then you see even a Jaren Jackson and Mo Bamba go the first 4 picks, now you go Doncic, but now you still don't fill that big guy, or you go Trae Young, whoever it may be, you still don't have that big guy. And so I think that's why this is coming out as a plan B for the draft, but also, like you said, maybe they don't think Bamba's going to be that great. Maybe they want a DeAndre Jordan to fill in and help nurture him for a few years or stuff like that. But what I'm going to say about this is, of course, the Mavericks should do this. Every year they go for the hottest name, and they fail to get even a freaking meeting. They barely get a meeting, and if they do, they say they'll come and then sign with the Clippers. Oh, wait, that's just DeAndre. I actually really hope DeAndre goes there now because freezing cold takes would actually just break. That account would literally break if he goes to the Mavericks after all that. But jokes aside, I'm just not surprised at all. The Mavericks literally do this every single year.
Yeah, if they do get one of these guys, I wouldn't hate trading the draft pick either if Doncic, Ayton, Bagley, Jaren Jackson, if their guy is gone, I don't hate trading the draft pick even.
But for what?
They could swing big for a guy like Kawhi Leonard, possibly. Or they could just trade back a few picks. I feel like the talent, if they don't like their guy at 5, I feel like
trade back.
I feel like they could definitely trade back.
I could not justify trading back in this draft. It's just not that good. Like, I just am very underwhelmed with this draft class. And what are you getting at 9 and 10? Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges. That's about it. And don't get me wrong, I think both of them are going to be good role players, but the Mavs need stars right now. And I think that Kawhi thing's interesting. If I'm Kawhi, I'd hate it. I would not want to go play for Dallas. But I think it's interesting that you talk about possibly trading that 5th pick. I think that's something to keep our eye out for.
All right, let's move into some coaching rumors now.
Yeah.
The Magic were reportedly interested in Tom Izzo, but apparently he does not want the job now. Also, Kelvin Sampson and Steve Clifford.
2 for 2 on IU mentions. We got Kelvin Sampson in here. We had
take
Eric
this flag
Gordon in
down
episode
right
1. But all three are big names in the respective areas. Sampson, maybe not for some great things at IU. Izzo, obviously, and Clifford for being an NBA head coach. I think all three are decent options. I think it goes Izzo, Clifford, Sampson. Maybe it's a little Izzo bias. I've never seen him in the NBA, but I think he's a fantastic coach. Either way, besides Aaron Gordon, the Magic literally have nothing. I don't buy Jonathan Isaac, and I would be hesitant as a coach wanting to go there as much as the GM wanting to get a coach. I don't blame Izzo at all for not wanting to go there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the Magic's interest in Tom Izzo. I mean, maybe they're looking at Jaren Jackson with their draft pick or something like that.
They've got the 4th pick, right?
I believe
I think so. So they think Jackson will get there because Bagley, Ayton, and Doncic go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that could possibly be a reason for Izzo. I think that would be an interesting hire. Sampson, no, please get him out. No. And then Steve Clifford, I think that would be an interesting hire, and I would like that for the Magic. He has experience developing players, and he got the Hornets out of the Bobcats' big hole that really they just were so bad for a long time, and he helped to get them out of that. Obviously, they're not living up to their potential right now, but he helped them get away from that 7-59 season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just stability, if nothing else. Like, they're not looking to be a championship contender in 2 years. It's, let's not be last every year. Like, if they could be a 9-10 seed, I think that's more than enough progress in a year or two for the Magic. So, yeah, I think all three names are interesting. But, hey, Kelvin Sampson recruited my boy Tom Pritchard, so don't be hating on Sampson.
What a guy. Let's move on, though. Suns, they hired Mike Woodson as the top assistant.
Yeah, that's all you. I didn't really know much about him. I know he coached the Knicks, did not go well with Melo and all that, but you got the pleasure of watching him be a defensive mastermind for the Clips. What do you think?
I think it's a really good move for the Suns. It gives them some experience with Igor. I don't even know how to say his last name.
I know you're talking about. Yeah.
They're the Suns' new head coach. But Mike Woodson as that top assistant gives them a lot of experience, and like you said, defensive mastermind. The Suns are really bad at defense. So.
Yeah, I actually really like what the Suns are doing. It sucks because the Lakers are in their division, but I think you get Booker, you get Ayton. I like Josh Jackson. I think he's a solid enough pick, and I think Marquise Chris still got something to prove. That's a pretty solid core. So
Don't forget about Bender.
And Bender, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty solid core for the Suns. I think Mike Woodson coming in, being more of a seasoned coach, I think it could be interesting. See how that plays out.
All right, and last rumor, coaches. The Knicks are in some serious talks with Judd Buechler to join David Fizdale's new staff there in New York.
I love Judd. I think he is a fantastic coach. He won us the Summer League last year, but if he leaves, I took this more from the Lakers approach. If he leaves, the Lakers need an X's and O guy. We have the personality and the player coaches in Brian Shaw, Luke Walton, all those guys that are very outgoing and They get the NBA vibes, but we've got to get somebody to mastermind the X's and O's. I don't know who yet. I'm still researching some names, trying to get an idea of who I want. We can talk about it in the next pod, hopefully. But I just think if he goes, we need an X's and O guy to help put us in that contention if we're going to try and be a top 5, top 6 seed next year.
All right, so Jason put that rumor in, so I think he just wanted to talk about the Lakers.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the NBA without the Lakers? Best franchise in the NBA.
I mean, the NBA has done perfectly fine in the last, 7 years without the Lakers. But
last 7 years. We won the championship in 2010 and had Steve Nash and Dwight Howard in 2012. We were relevant in both those years. And Kobe retired 2 years ago. And everyone hates the NBA because it's boring because the Warriors and Cavs. Have the Lakers go to the championship. Just saying.
Okay. So, it's time for our new segment. Big Ballers at the Buzzer.
Yes.
So you see a cool graphic down there with LeVar.
We gotta get a
Ball
buzzer
screaming.
for that. We gotta have a buzzer go off every time we talk about this segment.
All right. Anyway, so LiAngelo got some looks at the combine. So Jason, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so he was at the pro basketball combine. He was not at the NBA combine. There are different things. Notable guys that were also there: Dang Adele, JP Macura, Kaiser Gates, stuff like that. But he tested pretty well. He's 6'5" and a quarter. We knew that. 215 pounds. 6'9" wingspan, not bad. And he had a 35.5-inch vertical. But bigger news, he already interviewed with the Thunder and Suns and has workouts scheduled with the Lakers, Clippers, and Warriors. I know the Lakers are scheduled for Tuesday, and I'm really just excited to see how this story goes. There's not much right now because everybody's getting workouts, but I think it's going to be interesting after Tuesday hearing what they say about how it went, hearing what he says in his interview. Pulling up right now, he just did an interview with Yahoo, and they asked him about Lithuania and all that, and it basically talks about how Lithuania changed him in a lot of good ways and made him mature, and I think that's something that teams are going to be looking for is, has this guy matured after, obviously, his incident?
Yeah, pretty bad incident over there.
We're not going to get into it. If Zach, if you're listening, I still don't think Trump helped. It's a little inside joke between Zach and I. A few Garen kids know about it, but he's convinced that Trump helped. I don't think he helped that much, and it's a mess. But that was our big ballers at the buzzer. I'm telling you, we need to get a buzzer for this segment. It makes it that much better. It puts us really in the top 5 of podcasts ever if we have a buzzer.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, so maybe Lonzo will steal something next time. We'll have some more juicy stuff for the big ballers at
He'll
the
be
buzzer.
stealing championships. Don't be saying that. All he's getting is championships.
Okay. Well, sure.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for our podcast today. So, next podcast, hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah.
It'll be a short one if we do one.
It's basically going to be on how tonight goes. If the game's close, we'll get into it. We'll do like 10, 15 questions, as many as we can think of, really. But if it's a boring game, the Warriors or Rockets blow them out, no one wants to hear us talk. Go listen to a different podcast or turn on ESPN. They'll hear the same 5 things about how series is over, series isn't over, blah, blah, blah. So if it's close, we'll do it. If not, our next podcast will be next Monday, a little Memorial Day afternoon special. That'll be out at like 1 p.m.-ish. Make sure you listen to our podcast at Periscope, YouTube, Soundcloud. Subscribe and follow us on Twitter at the Sportz Sermon, sports with a Z on Twitter. You'll see our Twitter handles below as the show fades out. But thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you, and we need a buzzer for that. Big ballers at the buzzer.